To hit 20 billion calories, you would need to eat 80 million Big Macs. If you ate one every second, that would take you 2.5 years. You would need to eat about 1,000 every second for the full 24 hours. 20 billion calories is just 84 terajoules. That's more energy than was released from the Hiroshima bomb, except instead of destroying a city, you've just destroyed your digestive tract. Assuming you absorb all of it instantly, you'd gain about 5,700 metric tons. That's more than half the weight of the Eiffel Tower. Good luck finding pants. Michael Phelps famously ate 12,000 calories a day when he was training. You're eating 1.6 million times that. Congratulations, you're now the Olympic team for every country combined. The most calorie-dense food? Pure oil. You'd need about 2 million litres of it. That's not a meal, that's the Exxon Valdez spill. You finish your 20 billion calories. The ground shakes. A beam of light erupts into the sky. You have unlocked your final form. Hungry man, devourer of worlds. I'd recommend spreading your intake out over a couple of days. Perhaps 10 billion over Monday and Tuesday, and another 10 billion over Thursday and Friday, with a light salad on Wednesday. Let's say you stick to peanut butter, one of the most calorie-dense everyday foods, at 6,000 calories per jar. You would need 3 million jars. That's not a meal, that's an international shipping crisis. Imagine every ship in the Panama Canal full of jars of peanut butter, and you with a spoon. The healthy adult stomach can hold about 4 litres of food before it bursts. To eat 20 billion calories, you'd need a stomach the size of the Pacific Ocean. So before you even digest, you've already achieved human volcanism. Calories are just units of energy. 20 billion food calories is about 84 terajoules. That's enough to power the entire city of San Francisco for a week. Or you, for 7/10 of a second, before you become the world's first human-shaped fusion reactor. After the first billion calories, you'd feel sick. After 5 billion calories, the emergency room staff would give up. After 10 billion calories, the ground would tremble. And after the final 20 billionth calorie, the sky would crack open and Galactus himself would appear, saying, "Finally, a worthy apprentice." You're talking about eating the equivalent of a small nation's entire food supply in one sitting. Entire textbooks in economic history would be rewritten with a chapter titled, "That One Guy in 2026. Future archaeologists would dig up the ruins of your dining table and classify it as the point where human civilization split into 2 timelines. One where you didn't try this, and one where you did, wiping out global agriculture and starting a new dark age to satisfy your midnight snack. The sun outputs 4 times 10 to the 26 joules per second. After eating 20 billion calories, you would glow faintly in comparison for 2 times 10 to the minus 10 seconds, before extinguishing permanently. Global leaders would hold an emergency summit, not because of war or climate change, but because you just personally destabilize world food supplies. The UN Security Council resolution would be titled, "Stop Feeding So-and-so." Your mouth would have to operate like an industrial conveyor belt, and your esophagus would have to be 4-lane traffic. At that point, you're not even eating, you're manufacturing. Feeding you would require diverting the global grain supply for months. Wheat futures would spike, riots would break out, and your birthday dinner would be remembered in economic textbooks as the Great Caloric Crash of 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're witnessing here is unprecedented. He's already at the 10 billion mark, still chewing strong, and oh my goodness, he's going for dessert! Somewhere, Kobayashi is weeping. The carbon footprint of eating 20 billion calories in a day would exceed that of several small countries. You'd be contributing more to climate change than all of the world's SUVs combined. Basically, you just ate the polar ice caps. Let me be clear, your body would not allow that. You would pass out after 20,000 calories. 20 billion calories? That's bulking season, bro. Just hit the gym hard afterwards and you'll be shredded. The cut will be insane. World hunger is generally agreed to require 9 billion calories a day to solve. You're talking twice that. So essentially, instead of ending world hunger, you've invented personal famine acceleration. As you finish 20 billion calories, alarms will sound, your DNA will rewrite itself, and within seconds, you'll sprout glowing veins and mutter, "I require more planets." You can't even finish your broccoli, and now you want to eat 20 billion calories? If you consume 20 billion calories, do you eat the food, or does the food eat you? At what point does appetite transcend biology and become ontology? Something to think about. You won't survive, but maybe your hunger will. The 20 billionth calorie slid past his lips. A silence fell upon the kingdom. The eater rose, belly glowing like a forge, eyes burning with hunger. "More," he whispered, and the kingdom trembled. 20 billion calories is 20 billion EXP. Eat that and boom, you instantly level up to max. Problem is, the devs didn't see this coming, and you've glitched into the role of final boss. Patch incoming. They told you it couldn't be done. They said it was impossible. But you believed in yourself. And now you are dead. But you inspired millions. Your intestines suing you for unsafe work conditions would be the least of your worries. The real lawsuit would come from the United Nations for monopolizing the world's food supply. Your defense plea of, I was just peckish, will not hold up in The Hague. Even at 1 cent per calorie, that would still come to $200 million. Hopefully you got good credit, because Visa doesn't cover attempted self-planetary consumption. So, unfortunately, we cannot provide 20 billion calories in flight. We can, however, provide 50 mils of Coke and a bag with 3 pretzels. Find the relevant section under 613.2, Nutrition. But by the time you finished eating, the Dewey Decimal System will have collapsed under the strain of cataloguing your lunch. The government wants that. They want you to eat 20 billion calories. How do you think calories are really defined? 1 calorie is 1 nanobot. Don't fall for it. To achieve 20 billion calories, you would need to out-eat roughly 400 blue whales. At that point, the apex predator of the ocean. Stay away from boats. You attempt to eat 20 billion calories. Can we have a constitution saving throw? Nat 1. The party mourns as your character sheet bursts into flames. With 20 billion calories, you could survive in the wilderness for 25,000 years. What you're planning would be creating a new wilderness in your exploded stomach. 20 billion calories. Well, presentation is key. If it doesn't come with a nice garnish and a balsamic drizzle, I wouldn't be impressed. It's also important to judge whether the elements of the meal work together in harmony, and if it has a suitable aftertaste. The sheer weight of 20 billion calories in food would cause measurable tectonic stress. Local earthquakes would be traced back to you saying, just 1 more slice of cake. Let's break this down. You've got 86,400 seconds in a day. That would mean you would need to eat about 231,000 calories per second. If you're not eating while you're asleep, you've already failed. Efficiency is key. The recommended daily intake is 2,000 calories. You're eating 10 million% of that. In statistical terms, you would be an outlier. Weak. I ate 400 billion calories once. Ha! After eating 20 billion calories, the only clothing option available for you is continental landmass. This season, we call it volcano chic.
In a world where hunger knows no bounds, one man ate 20 billion calories. This summer, Gastrogeddon.
Outmemorug to kuka takmiku, tikimeto rock ribs und gigtep, humtix ubebkiz to kukarak, kartapet pakandre biri pakok humozepians, hangpeg tak humus nakuz, abhangpeg kuka takt.
At that intake rate, your jaw must operate like a pneumatic press. Occupational safety regulations do not cover this. Feeding 20 billion calories into a human is like trying to train GPT-100 onto a toaster. Theoretically possible, but the hardware will melt. So tell me, what are you really trying to fill with 20 billion calories? Sir, the guy in the cafeteria just ate 20 billion calories. Should I file this under biological anomaly or potential launch vehicle? Storing 20 billion calories of food requires more warehouse space in Los Angeles County, and that is a zoning violation. Eating 20 billion calories in a day would be like bench pressing an oil tanker, or running a 5-second marathon, or having 100,000 IQ. You're limited by the physical capabilities of the human body. So in short, you would fail.